Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the 29th degree of Pisces. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Anyway, first off, 29 degrees of a sign can be a degree of upheaval and crisis. It can also represent the full culmination of an energy of the sign. That is how I see it anyway. And this can also give very amplified, powerful, and intensified Pisces energy and characteristics, perhaps even distorted Pisces energy. Now, the person may be exceptionally idealistic, compassionate, emotional. I mean, Pisces can have all-encompassing emotions anyway, but then if you put it at the you're talking about the 29th degree, that could even be really expanded, I believe, and amplified even more. Now, also exceptional philanthropic, charitable qualities. The person may be very self-sacrificing, imaginative, very dreamy, but yet perhaps unrealistic, and have be very maybe even almost supremely nebulous and even confused, but at the same time perhaps very exceptionally and strongly deceptive and duplicitous, unfortunately, as well. 29 degrees of a sign, I see this as can be about procrastination. I refer to this as the inveterate procrastinator degree. I mean, given it's the 29th degree is the last degree of a zodiac sign, and they could often be very, I'd say, notoriously late for things. Now, the person may be notoriously late and tardy, and there may be strong delays in matters connected with the metaphysical or spirituality, and even and just Pisces-related things in general, helping those less fortunate. It could be fulfilling those dreams and fantasies, even, and attaining their ideals, and perhaps even trying to end or maybe deal or eradicate some kind of addiction at times, whether it might be alcohol, drugs, or something else. Now, also excessive procrastination may be attributed to constantly excessively dreaming and fantasizing and being overly indolent, even lackadaisical, as opposed to taking action. Now, there may be many endings connected with one's dreams and fantasies and perhaps unrealistic goals even. Now, given, as I stated before, 29 degrees of a zodiac sign can be a degree of upheaval and crisis. Now, there could be many crisis-related situations that are very chaotic and confusing. It could be tied into being deceived, being overly gullible, perhaps even deceiving others. I mean, Pisces, of course, can be victimized by things connected with their own engineering at times. A lot of the crisis could be attributed to replicating others' behavior, which of course can be including negative behavior of others, and a lot of impressionability. And Pisces can be very impressionable anyway, but then at the 29th degree, it can be exceptionally and very strongly impressionable, I believe. Now, and also a lot of crisis can be connected with being easily manipulated and bamboozled, perhaps, as well. And maybe even crisis situations related to maybe constantly trying to extricate oneself from some kind of confining situation. It could be also this person may be constantly dealing with matters, in some cases, connected with imprisonment and or a hospitalization. And it could also be a very meandering degree, I believe, because Pisces could be really that drifter. And when you put it at this 29th degree, it's almost like, figuratively speaking, the degree on steroids, so to speak, very amplified energy. And that could be meandering and kind of drifting around, floating around, figuratively speaking. And Pisces, unfortunately, can be very I call it directionless, and lacking any really strong direction. And this, of course, can be this 29th degree can inflate that, I believe. Now, also, 29 degrees Pisces, as far as Sabian symbols go, well, this can indicate perhaps one that may be somewhat egocentric and strongly allows one's own interests to take precedence over others. Now, however, this can give very strong mediumistic tendencies as well. One unfortunately may put a facade on of being of a greater stature in life than they actually are, and it could be where there is this person might try to appear smarter than one actually is, and maybe a very strong condescending attitude as well. And despite perhaps often mediumistic tendencies, perhaps this person may have tremendous difficulty in deciphering the character composition of others, so to speak. Remember that this degree is also, it's at the degree of the fixed star sheet, and this could indicate in some cases inflicting harm on oneself, tendencies toward that, and especially if this is like making an adverse aspect to Mars in the chart, and even I would say especially if Mars is retrograde, because remember that retrograde energy could be more about self-inflicted harm, I believe, as opposed to outwardly directing it. So in other words, basically if there's other indicators in the chart that might reaffirm or reinforce this, there can be some tendency toward hurting oneself that could lead to death. So anyway, also too, again, being at this fixed by this very close to the fixed, or sometimes exactly conjunct, depending on what minute of arc the person has the 29th degree of Pisces at. But at that same base, at that same degree though, I mean, it is conjunct the fixed star sheet, and at that same degree, it could also too, this could signify great tribulation and sorrow, and there may be some water-related catastrophe as well. Now, also too, given, let's say that this is the Sun in Pisces at 29 degrees, for example, well, this could be about perhaps a person that might be constantly, if a person perhaps through constantly chasing unrealistic dreams, ambitions, expending all this energy perhaps on others, this self-sacrificing energy, helping those less fortunate excessively, may take a toll on the vitality and energy. Now, let's say if this is the Moon, well, this energy, it could be similar energy that's being expended, but it's more where the person might feel emotional energy dissipated. It can be through constantly rescuing others, again helping others less fortunate than oneself, such as the oppressed, the homeless, the impoverished, and self-sacrificing energy could leave the person emotionally drained. Now let's say that somebody has the 29th degree of Pisces at the Ascendant. Now this could be a person that might have many constant issues going on with the physical body, and it could be where the person might have a lot of issues, say with the feet, the toes, Pisces-like things, and the lymphatic system. And also too, the person may constantly not be satisfied with one's appearance. The person might not, I mean, Pisces energy could be very idealistic. So the person, in some cases, if they have the 29th degree of Pisces on their Ascendant, they might not ever feel satisfied with their appearance, perhaps not having that ideal look, or perhaps not real, or maybe not looking mystical enough in some cases. It could be where the person constantly goes through manifold different appearances, because remember that Pisces can be chameleon-like. They are, I mean, in theory, some will concur with this, others will not, but I believe in it that Pisces is actually the amalgamation of the previous 11 zodiac signs, so they could take on so many different appearances. And then when you talk about the 29th degree, that could even distort, I believe, and amplify that tendency and propensity as well. Anyway, also too, it's important to look at the house that this falls in, as this could impact the delineation of this. Now, let's say, for example, someone has the Sun at 29 degrees Pisces in their 8th house in their chart. Now, this could show perhaps distorted, very enlarged, self-sacrificing energy, as far as perhaps giving us a moral, emotional support, and even monetary support in some cases, where and could really, this is also another thing that could be another description could be, as far as this goes, there could be an abundance of crisis situation that are confounding and confusing, and the person might be tied in to 8th house matters, such as maybe dealing with excessive credit card fraud and or insurance fraud, deception. So anyway, well, what I want to talk about are some people that have this 29th degree of Pisces, or they either have it at 29 degrees or very close to it. Many of you may have heard of Edgar Casey. I believe his title was like a mystic clairvoyant, and he was at the very least a self-proclaimed psychic. He had his sun probably at 28 degrees Pisces, which is not far from the 29th degree. And I mean, I think this perhaps figured prominently and possible if he had this inflated mediumistic tendencies and psychic ability prowess. Now, and he also, I mean, he was renowned. I mean, he got a lot of fame for this, assuming he actually was able to do these things as far as on a psychic level. Now, former NBA head coach Pat Riley likely has his sun at 29 degrees Pisces, depending on birth time. Now, I believe he likely did have his sun at 29 degrees Pisces, as opposed to perhaps 0 degrees Aries if he was born at a later time in the day. Now, I mean, 29 degrees Pisces can give very inflated, very prodigious, idealistic energy. Now, I remember something he said, I think I read it in a newspaper column at the time. He said it at his number of years ago. I believe it was after that, the 1992 NBA Eastern Conference series, which pit the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks. Now, he said something like, quote, "I want every game to be like Game 6, end quote. Now, as far as that goes, he was making a reference to Game 6 of the 1992 NBA Eastern Conference semifinals, in which I felt the Knicks put on a phenomenal performance in defeating the Chicago Bulls 100-86. Now, they ultimately lost Game 7 and the series. However, what he was saying, I think he really epitomized strong Pisces, the 29 degree energy in that, because he was that showed the strong Pisces idealism in that statement, that he wants every game to be magnificent like that particular Game 6, though, in the 1992 NBA Eastern Conference semifinals, again, which pit the Chicago Bulls against the New York Knicks. Now, another thing, too, when we look at another thing I want to talk about, another person that comes to mind is the late, great Fred Rogers, who was that host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now, he had a Pisces sun at 29 degrees. Again, he hosted that acclaimed show on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And he did this for over 30 years. Now, he made this fantasy world on the show very inviting and very enticing for others, which, of course, could be very strongly connected with the zodiac sign Pisces. He gained, renown for doing this. Perhaps a lot of that was attributed to that 29th degree of Pisces, because this energy manifested in a very big way. And I think the fact he had Taurus rising he put a lot of this show was done with a lot of persistence and stability, loyalty and steadfastness, and it lasted and endured for over 30 years on television. So I think a lot of that, you had that Taurus energy blending in very strong in flavoring the Pisces sun and his Pisces moon energy. But anyway, last thing I want to talk about is that as far as predictive astrology goes, well, the 29th degree of predictive astrology may signify the end of an addictive, something addictive, which could be manifold things. Of course, it could be the end of a figurative or literal prison and confinement situation. It could be an ending of where one might have felt ostracized or isolated or condemned somehow. It could even be a period where one have been excessively deceived, betrayed, where that can come to a culmination or completion. Now, let's say, for example, that the transit Sun in Pisces it was at 29 degrees and it fell in someone's fourth house. Now, this could indicate the end of a period where one might have felt isolated from their family, or perhaps even ostracized, and also too, or the end of some duplicitous home situation. Now, it could also be, now let's say, for example, that transit Sun in Pisces at 29 degrees falls in one's 8th house in their chart. This could be the end of some sexual addiction that might take place and might be completed. In some cases, it could be a detox transformation, may reach a culmination or end. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for 29 degrees Pisces. Stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be giving you my Aries September 2018 horoscope forecast. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.